We were having a connection issue. I was just checking that. Sorry about that. Okay. Core components, let me repeat once again. Sorry, guys, if you have missed this, had a connection issue in between. So core components of gap analysis: number one, current state assessment; number two, final assessment, that is a future state assessment, where you try to understand what are the goals and objectives that you want to achieve and whether they are aligned with the business objectives. So take throughout this session, definitely take notes, guys. Towards the end, I have a quiz for you. So that will also help you understand how much have you been able to absorb from this session. So take a pen and paper. Okay, I'm not going to send any notes here in the chat window, but I want you to note it down. At the end of the session, we will run a quiz and see how much of information you were able to retain from this session, how much you were able to gain. So if you don't have a pen and paper, go and grab it right now. So two components of gap analysis I've already explained. The third component is the gap itself. Okay, the difference or shortfall between the current and the future state. Okay, for example, manual processes that need automation, lack of customer insight due to fragmented data systems. They are all gap examples of gap. So when I give you an example of manual processes that need automation, students who work with us on capstone project, they are exactly doing that kind of an activity where a bank has their entire compliance management system. That entire compliance management process is driven in a manual way. Okay, so their regulatory reporting processes within the bank, it's completely manual, and our students are working towards digging to understand the challenges they are facing and why it has been manual so far, and how exactly they can achieve the future state. So the future state that the bank has defined is to completely digitize this and develop a system that can automate the end-to-end regulatory reporting. Okay, so students are working towards creating the business goals, objectives, and understanding the gap between current state and the future state. So that's the reason one of the examples is manual processes that need automation. So in the project that students are working on, they do a process mapping to understand what's the current process, and when automation takes over, how will the future process look like? And what areas can be automated and what areas cannot be automated. Okay, so this is a huge exercise uh, which you when you are doing a gap assessment in a project, it's a huge exercise that where you have to liaise with stakeholders, understand their problems, prepare certain documents, and then revisit it with the team, brainstorm, and come up with a future state solution. So number one gap, current state assessment. Number one component is current state assessment. Number two is future state. Third is the gap. And fourth is the action plan that we create. Okay, very important, action plan. Action plan is nothing but a roadmap that outlines steps to bridge the gap. Okay, so let me type this also in the chat window. Action plan is nothing but a roadmap which outlines steps to bridge the gap. And when do we use gap analysis? Understand what kind of projects involve gap analysis. Not every project will involve a gap analysis activity. Don't think you once you get hired as a business analyst, your first thing will be to do a gap analysis. No, you don't do gap analysis in every project. Business analysis techniques, if you understand it, has to be applied in projects that require those techniques to be applied. Okay, so gap analysis is one of the techniques, but don't go and apply the technique in every project. So gap analysis is used in process improvement initiatives, very much used, very useful tool. When you are implementing new system or technology, it's used for business expansion also, or diversification. So if you want to expand your business, diversify your business, yes, gap analysis is good. It's used as a strategic planning tool to meet organization goals. Remember this. Now I've also have a case study with me to give you further information about gap analysis. But for now, um, understand the steps, and then we will apply those steps in a case study. Now, when a BA, I mentioned the core components of a gap analysis, right? When a BA is performing gap analysis in a project, what are the steps the BA takes? What is the sequence of steps the BA takes when he or she is performing a gap analysis? Okay. So let's say you are in a process improvement initiative. You are deployed as a business analyst to improve certain processes within the organization. The first steps that you will do is define the objectives. So have a clear meeting with the senior management to understand what are the goals that they want to achieve. What are the end goals that you want to achieve? They want to achieve. So, like for example, a simple example of a goal statement might be they want to reduce customer complaints by 30% within 6 months. Customer complaints by 30% within 6 months. So, step one, define objectives. Step two, again, one of the core component which I told you, current state assessment. So, which means what you're going to do is you will have back-to-back meetings with the stakeholder to gather data. To gather data to understand existing challenges and the existing performance level. Now, let me tell you a small story here. When we met up with the senior management of a particular company, they had several challenges with respect to one of their product not performing in the market. Okay, and they had a lot of complaints around one particular application that their ground level staff was using. That particular application was a legacy application, something that was built 10, 11 years ago, and now it was not serving the purpose. Um, so they were having a lot of complaints around this particular application is eating up the productivity of their staff, and that's the reason there have been a rising concern from the customer side because of the delays and all of that. So what we did is we gathered enough data to understand, make a list of their challenges. Now, the senior management was not able to give us much clarity. They just gave us at a very high level. And always understand, guys, when you are talking to the senior management of a company, they will always give you information at a very high level. Okay. So they are not the ground level people who execute it. So the actual challenges can always be understood by the ground level staff. So naturally, the senior management of the company was not using this application. So they told us at a very high level that this application has performance issues and does not have new features that are required. So very much on a high level again. But we needed very detailed information to do gap analysis, right? So we had discussions with the ground level staff to gather data around what exactly are their challenges, what works in the application and what does not work. Now, we used several techniques for that. When we started talking to the ground level staff, we understood that their staff itself consists of 300 to 350 people. Okay. Now we can't talk to all 350 people, right? But there will be some crucial information with all of them. So what we did is we used a mixture of several business analysis techniques. One is a survey technique that's very effective when you are talking to a large group. So we floated a survey. That's number one. We also had interviews with a subset of users, probably the team leads and things like that, to gather data on a one-on-one level. In certain cases, we also did system audits, the existing system audits, to figure it out ourselves, how comfortable it is to work with the application. So combine these three techniques, we got a whole bunch of data that told us what exactly was the challenge associated with the application. Step number 3, identify the gaps. Okay. Now that we have defined the objectives, that is, define the future state, define the current state, it is important to find the gap between both. So what did we do? We compared the current state with the future state. Okay. We tried to dig further to understand that if there have been some customer complaints, why those customer complaints are coming, and how this particular application is eating away the productivity of the staff, and which in turn is leading to customer service delays, due to which customers are getting annoyed. So we compared the current state with the future state, and we were able to identify certain root causes. Okay. So when you are doing a gap analysis, this is another thing you get involved in. We analyze the root causes for the problem. Okay. Root cause analysis is again a very important business analysis technique. So you can, under root cause analysis, there are several other techniques that you can use to do an effective root cause analysis, like the fishbone diagram. We have the 5I technique. Whichever you are comfortable, you can use that for root cause analysis. In our project, uh, we had a requirement for every root cause that we perform. We had to create a separate causal document. Okay, so that was norm in our project, which we followed. Not all projects we have this, but in our project we had a detailed document about the root cause analysis also, which was performed. After which, once you have all of this data, what is the data that I told you? Step 1, the objectives. Step 2, current state assessment. And step 3, the gaps. Step 4, the root cause analysis. Once that's done, step 5 is to develop an action plan. Okay. Now, developing an action plan is not a very easy job. Everyone will agree with the fact it is not a very easy job. You might have gathering data becomes rather easy because we are talking to the stakeholders or floating surveys to them, and they are giving you the data. But developing an action plan requires you to have some, it requires you to get involved in some meticulous planning, where you can define certain actions that will help them address those gaps. Okay. Now, this again comes with experience only. But if you are a beginner BA, you might be, if you're involved in a gap analysis activity, you might be involved with other senior members in your project. You will not be doing it alone as a beginner BA, as a junior BA. If you're working as a senior BA in an organization, definitely then you should have the capability to do a gap analysis. Okay, you should have very good knowledge of gap analysis. That's one expectation that is there for lead BAs, senior BAs. But junior BAs, of course, will have a team of senior consultants working on this assignment along with them. So action plan net will be prepared by the senior BA, and it will include strategies to address the gap, timeline, as well as the resource requirements. How much resources will be required, and what is the ballpark timeline that's required. Now, step 6, once that action plan is done, and once you start implementing the plan in their organization, your step number 6 will be to monitor progress, which means you need to measure progress using some KPIs and feedback mechanisms. What is KPIs? KPI stands for key performance indicators, key performance indicators. So you also, as an activity, while you're defining the action plan, you'll also define how will you measure the progress whether there has been any improvement or not, right? See, even in our even in the real life scenario, which I told you, that you are currently 80 kgs and you want to become 60 kgs by the end of the year, the strategies that you apply, you might go on a new diet, you might hire a trainer or do some other physical activity, whatever strategies that you apply, you have to have a mechanism to measure the results, isn't it? You need to know whether things are working for you or not. So, what do you do in that case? You will try to weigh yourself every alternate day or daily or weekly, whatever. So you'll try to, some people find out their BMI to see how much they have improved in terms of their health, the amount of exercise that they do. They will either increase or decrease based on the results that they are getting, based on the advice of their trainer. So that's what is step number 6, monitoring progress. So even in our real life, when we are doing something, we need to monitor the progress. Otherwise, you don't understand whether you are going ahead or you're falling back. When you're not constantly measuring it, there is no way you can track it, whether you are in the right, you are doing the right things or not. Now, let me give you a very, very simple example of gap analysis. Hear this out. This is a case study. This example will clarify things for you. Just let me. Here is an example of an e-commerce business. Customers, the problem was the customers were abandoning the carts at a high rate, reducing revenue. What is cart abandonment, guys? What does that mean? It means that people are adding items to the shopping cart. They are reaching the final page where payment has to be made, but they are not doing the final checkout. They are not paying and they are not placing the order. Okay. Customer cart abandonment. So the current state was that 70% of the carts were abandoned, and customers cite long checkout times as one of the reasons. So one of the reasons that came up was long checkout times. The desired state was to achieve a cart abandonment rate of 20%. You can't completely solve this problem, right? You can't say that none of the customers going forward will abandon their carts. There will be people who will abandon, but we will have to reduce it to 20%. The current rate is 70%. So current state assessment, 70% of abandonment, and future state that we want to get into 20%. The gap that was figured out was inefficient checkout process. So what did they do? An example of an action plan that was rolled out. Implement a one-click checkout system. Hmm? Probably when the analysts sat together to do a assessment of the current checkout process, they found that for in order for checking out, a customer has to click on several. There are several steps to the checkout. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So it's a long process. So why can't we cut it down? The analyst proposed. Why can't we make it a single click? Offer them multiple payment options. So this was also one of the suggestions. Maybe people come to the payment page and they check out the payment options and their option is not there, and that's the reason they leave the cart. Or test and optimize the UI for speed and simplicity. Maybe the UI is too heavy to load, has a lot of graphics, has a lot of videos and all of those loaded. Can we optimize the UI further for speed in order to improve the speed? So this was a small case study which showed you that an e-commerce company, how an e-commerce business had customers abandoning the cart at 70% to 70% rate, and how a 20% rate was achieved by certain strategies, simple strategies that was proposed to the customers, to the client, sorry. Now, similar kind of example I have. One more example. Just give me a minute. Take a look at this scenario. Hope everyone can see my screen. In this scenario, a retail business is experiencing declining customer satisfaction scores. So they were doing very good as a business 6 months ago, but since 6 months, they have started seeing a decline in the customer satisfaction score. Okay, and they called a group of consultants, analysts, to figure out what was the reason for that. They have been doing very good as a business and delivering very good quality products. Now, the analyst came and performed a gap analysis on the current status. They did a current state assessment, assess analysis, and they figured out that the customer satisfaction scores had dropped to 60% in the recent months. Okay, the drop was 60%, which is a significant amount. Now, customer complaints involved long wait times, unavailability of products, lack of personalized offers. So several products which were required by the customer, it was always unavailable. Lack of some personalization of offers, again, very much was one of the complaints, and long wait times. So this was the current state assessment. This was the data that came out of the current state assessment. Desired state, take a look at that. Desired state by the management was to achieve a customer satisfaction score of 60 months within the next 6 months. So they had a timeline of 6 months. Within 6 months, our customer satisfaction scores should be up by 90%. Desired state reduced complaints by 50% and improve customer retention. So two objectives they had: bring up their customer satisfaction score, reduce the complaints by 50%, and improve customer retention. That means when I say improve customer retention, it means bringing the same customer back to you to buy other products. Identify the gap. Inefficient checkout process and poor inventory management. This was one of the gap in their business process. Checkout process was inefficient, and poor inventory management. Why is that identified as a gap? Because one of the customer complaint was unavailability of products. Poor inventory management, that definitely they have. Gap in customer engagement, that was lack of personalization in marketing and offers. There was no personalized offers rolled out to the customers. So their customers, again, this came out of one of the complaints that they got. So when we are scrutinizing the company's complaints they have received from the customer, a lot of this customer complaints information comes from their support desk itself. People write about this in their feedback form, and that's the reason most of the companies ask for feedback. So gap in customer engagement, gap in technology, outdated systems leading to delayed updates on product availability. So there was a gap in technology. They were working on some outdated systems which delayed updates on product availability. This was the gap that was identified. And the action plan. This was the detailed action plan that was listed for this particular project. First action plan: optimize the checkout process. So direct attack on the checkout process. The first one, the gap. Introduce self-checkout kiosks and mobile payment options. Train the staff to manage peak hours effectively. See, understand, guys, the first action plan has been laid out to address process gaps, which is checkout process and inventory management. And we have created action plan aligned to those process gaps. So we have to, what the analyst, the group of consultants working on this project, they said, first of all, we need to introduce some self-checkout kiosks. So that means there's not a huge line of customers waiting for to pay the bill and walk out of the store. Let's have some self-checkout kiosks and mobile payment options. Number two, let's train the staff to manage peak hours. Second, improve inventory management. Now that we are already know the inventory management system, the process itself is not so good. We have to implement an automated inventory management system. What does an automated inventory management system do, guys? As soon as a particular product is purchased by a customer, the stock, the number of stocks is automatically updated in the inventory management system. So when a purchase happens, that particular product is deducted from, it's -1 from the inventory. That automatically is taken care of. So nobody needs to manually keep track of the inventory, how much was sold today and how much is left in stock. That's a tedious process and prone to error. Number two, conduct weekly stock reviews to ensure high demand items are available. So weekly stock reviews to be done by the supervisors to ensure high demand items are always available. Next, now that we have addressed the gaps of the process, we come to gaps. The second type of gaps for customer engagement. Customer engagement. So for customer engagement, what can we do, guys? We can suggest CRM tools, which can analyze customers' preferences and purchase history, provide personalized offers and discounts, personalized offers, implement loyalty programs where you reward repeat customers with points, discounts, or exclusive deals. Reward them. And the last one, address technology gaps. Now, with respect to technology, we already know they were working on outdated system, right? So they need to definitely upgrade their system. So transition to a cloud-based ERP system for real-time updates, use AI to predict demand patterns and adjust the stock accordingly. Okay. Also, introduce feedback mechanisms. Create simple channels for customers to share feedback, like mobile apps or kiosks, where create very simple channels where people will be motivated to give you feedback. Okay, that feedback will further will be used to address any gaps that might occur in the future. Very much required. Now let's come to the quiz. I hope everyone's understood with this case study what we are dealing with, right? What is gap analysis? If you're clear, type CL, guys. If you're very clear about this topic that we discussed today. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Great for that. Thank you for that feedback, guys. So our next step is to take you through a quiz where you will be able to assess your own understanding of the topic. But before that, if you have any questions, you can post it for me. With respect to gap analysis, not for with respect to any other topic. Yes, gap analysis is the topic for today. So please post questions on gap analysis and not. Start posting your questions, guys. Start posting your questions, if any. Okay, we have a question here. When do we do a gap analysis? So I already mentioned this at the beginning that you do not do a gap analysis in all projects. You don't jump and do it. Gap analysis is done in specific scenarios. Your client, if you are in a business process improvement initiative, yes, you will do a gap analysis. You might be doing a gap analysis when the client has an old application. You are building a new application for them. So you need to understand what are the challenges, shortcomings of the old application. Okay. So process gaps, technology gaps, different types of gaps when you want to identify inefficiencies, shortfalls, opportunities for improvement. Those areas you do a gap analysis. I didn't understand your question. Is GA has major role in? I didn't understand that. Okay, let's move on to the questions, guys. Let's move on to the question. If you have been with me while I was explaining this particular case study, then the quizzes will be very, very simple for you. So don't worry about it. Okay, so let me bring up my slide. Just answer these questions. Type in the chat window what you feel is the right answer to this. So be ready to type the options, guys. Option 1, 2, 3, 4. The options will come to you in the screen. A, B, C, D, you just have to try. Now, in the retail case study that I just told you about, what is the primary goal of gap analysis in the retail business scenario that we just spoke about? Reduce operational cost, identify customer satisfaction issues and bridge the gaps, or launch new product lines, increase the number of checkout counters. What exactly is the primary goal? Good. Most of you have got it correct. Good, good. Yes. Option number 2, identify customer satisfaction issues and bridge the gaps. Question number 2, which of the following is an example of a process gap identified in a retail business? Process gap, example of a process gap. Very simple. Process gap, guys. Process gap is inefficient checkout process. That's the fourth option. Question number 3. Which action plan directly addresses the technology gaps identified in the scenario? Which action plan addresses technology gaps? Again, very easy. If you have been with us for the case study, it will be very easy for you. Yes, that's correct. Option number 3, C, transition to a cloud-based ERP system. Then the last question. What is the key benefit of addressing customer engagement gaps, such as introducing loyalty programs? What is the key benefit of that? Correct. That's correct. Everyone got that correct, I think. Option number 2, enhanced customer satisfaction and retention, customer retention and satisfaction. That's quite obvious. So thank you. The quiz was pretty easy, I believe. Okay, by the responses I got in the quiz, I believe today's topic is very clear to everyone. Any questions before we wrap up today's session? Tomorrow we have our business analysis workshop as usual. Every Thursday we do the business analysis workshop to induct people who are in another profession and they want to move into business analysis profession. So if you are in that transition mode, you want to know more about business analyst role, the Thursday workshop is for you, where we will tell you what are the steps that you need to take in order to move to a BS role and how exactly you can prepare yourself, what kind of certifications can take you there. So the entire roadmap will be given to you in tomorrow's session. Okay. So that's there in store for tomorrow's session. So the links will come in the WhatsApp community group. Most of you has joined us from the WhatsApp community group. So stay in that group, guys. Tomorrow's link will also come in. And if you want to learn about our plan, prepare, practice framework, which will help you achieve your goal of getting into a BA's role, then definitely be there too in tomorrow's session. We will tell you what it takes to become a business analyst and become successful in this career. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for attending today's session. Bye bye. Good night.